public exposure as we continue in with our investigation of the mortgage foreclosure crisis, and it's not just about a home loan. Instead, you got to go pretty deep, and we're very fortunate to have Ellen Brown, the author of Web of Death and an attorney who has dug very, very deep into the crisis. Ellen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
The Web of Debt itself, the book that you wrote, you have updated. You first wrote it in 2007, is that right? Mm-hmm. And now here we are in the latter part of 2011, and new material still keeps coming your way, right?
Yeah. In fact, now I'm writing another book. There's too much to update.
Too much to update. Okay. Well, this segment is about where did QE2 go wrong and the money went offshore. Quantitative easing is another word for?
Money printing by the Fed, although they don't actually print it. They enter it into accounts, but it's money creation by the Fed.
In reading your blog, there's so many fantastic citations, and you have so many different places where you get information. One of the things came from Penn State. Professor at the Economics and Finance, he said this was October, actually this was just a couple of days, well actually this was June 27th when he wrote this. But what it was about, he says, in essence, it appears as if much of the monetary stimulus generated by the Fed went to the euro-dollar market. This is all a part of the carry trade, as foreign branches of an American bank could borrow dollars from the home bank, creating a euro-dollar deposit. We were propping up the euro with Fed dollars?
Yeah. Well, QE2 was $600 billion that was supposed to go for the purchase of long-term government bonds, which was a good idea. You know, the Fed has routinely engaged in open market operations where they buy government bonds or government securities, but they usually buy the short-term treasuries. Mm-hmm. So they were going to the long term, and this was supposed to reduce the interest rate for mortgages. But the problem is that ever since 1935, there was a law passed where the Congress could not just walk over to the Fed and say, here, turn our bonds into dollars. They had to go through these bond dealers, supposedly because that would slow the Congress up from just sort of monetizing their debt. But what it meant was now we have these middlemen who get a cut out of the deal. Congress still funds whatever they want to fund. And the middlemen can mess the thing up. I mean, they don't necessarily put the money where it was intended to go. So the government does its bond issue. The 20 bond dealers sell them to whoever. And the way this QE2 went, there was a secret auction where you would have to auction it off to the highest bidder, or the lowest bidder.
And when did that auction take place?
I believe this was last...
2010?
Yeah.
In 2010, wow. I did want to take a step back just a little bit to show that it worked. If they were trying to prop up the euro dollar, it worked. Because if we go to the graphic, we see the euro was at its low point against the US dollar or one of the many low points that it's had in early June of 2010. And then all of a sudden, it was actually, I think based on the information I saw, it was around that time that auction must have taken place, because whoom, there went the euro, started going up and up and up and up against the US dollar, which to many of the largest corporations, that was in their interest for the euro to be higher, right?
Right. So you can't tell what motivated this arrangement, but the thing is, there are 12 of the 20 bond dealers are European banks or foreign banks with American branches.
Let's actually go to those graphics because we've got them. The primary dealers list, thanks again to your blog, which is fantastic. It's the primary dealers list comes out of the Fed of New York. And let's go actually to the next graphic because that's where that list is. And as we see that list, tell us more. You're talking about how 12 of the 20 are...
Yeah, so more than half are foreign banks with U.S. branches. And the Fed is required to do this open auction where...
Yeah, there's Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs is based in New York, but they probably don't have a home anymore. I didn't say that.
Not anymore.
So how could it be that Congress would let our money go through the Fed that was a stimulus package and go to prop up the euro?
Yeah, well, in fact, they have no choice because that's the only way. I mean, if the Fed wants to buy bonds, it has to buy from the bond dealers because of legislation passed by Congress in the 30s. So Congress should get rid of that law. It was a bad law. It didn't serve the purpose it was intended to serve, and what it does do is give the bond dealers control over this auction. So the European banks obviously had more motive to put in a better bid than any of the other banks, so they got the bid, so they got the money.
So what you're talking about is changing that law so that we can get rid of the middleman.
Right.
And this middleman has cost us a lot of money.
Right.
And 10 to 1, the middleman are some of the same ones who were talked about so much about causing so many of the credit default swap problems, right?
Right, and they're the same banks that were causing problems in Europe, like Deutsche Bank is a big derivatives bank that got into big trouble.
Are we still doing this? I mean, these primary dealers list I got in preparation for the show yesterday, which was October the 25th, 2011. That's when I got this list. So we're still doing it today.
Right, and they're the ones that get all the excess reserves, and so the excess reserves are sitting on their banks, on their books. They have no motivation to lend them to the smaller banks because they get this interest from the Fed that's just as good as they would get at the Fed funds rate. So they've got it all locked up there in Wall Street and their European counterparts.
What can the public do to change this?
Well, they need to change some laws, but the first thing I think is awareness, public awareness. Most people just don't understand how it works, and they think it's too complicated. I'll leave that to the experts. But more and more we're realizing that the experts have messed it up and that they don't really understand either.
Wow, time has moved so fast. I want to talk about Ron Paul and his ideas, which were kind of interesting, but that'll just have to be at another time. We're very fortunate to have Ellen Brown with us from webofdebt.com. She's written the book Web of Debt. You're going to want to read it. You're also going to want to go to the website and onto the blog. We'll see you next time right here on Public Exposure. Take care.